Welcome to That's What She Said, where we'll spill the tea on women empowerment in the Great Lakes Bay region with your host, Christiana Malacara.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of That's What She Said. And yes, we're spilling the tea once again on That's What She Said Day. So thank you for joining us today and just feeling empowered, right? Taking those steps in your day to move forward, feel empowered, get excited, and then push through the rest of your week until the next That's What She Said day. So I was scrolling, right? As we all do. You know, our thumbs are moving, scrolling on many channels of social media that are at our fingertips. And I saw this little graphic, right? And it had all these stars and it was really beautiful. And the font was really small. And I was like, what does that say? And so I looked at it. And in the smallest font and the most beautiful picture, it said, and I wrote it down, it's very simple, but I wrote down, it said, do not let their energy change yours. I was like, whoa, okay, that's a thing. Because I know many times in professional development classes, going through college, just life experiences, holding yourself up to it, that standard and specific situations, you're like, oh, well, I'm going to bring the energy to the room. Okay. And then you walk into a room and, some people are really good at reading the room. Some people are not. And we're like, oh, this person, they're bringing their energy into that room and it might not align with yours. And there is a time to be empathetic, but do we really need to carry that? Do we really need to let their energy affect our energy? No. My answer is no. I don't know what yours is, but at the end of the day, just keep this in the mind. Don't let their energy change yours. Thank you, Instagram, for providing us with that quote today for That's What She Said Day. Again, my name is Christiana Malacara, and I'm your host of That's What She Said. We're going to spill the tea today with someone who is very special and very pivotal in what she does. And we're going to learn about how she got to where she was with, you know what? I'll let her spill the tea. Let's move on to our guest, Gail. Hi, Gail.
Hi there. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for coming in.
Yay, me too.
I'm
so happy.
Really happy that we made this work out. Let's see. How do I start? How do we know? I mean, how do we know each other? How did we
met
meet?
at the chamber?
This is it. Yes. So networking is powerful, right?
Absolutely.
So Gail, she provided the business card. Gail works for the Disability Service Resource Center, but there's many ways that the community might know you. Can you share a little bit about yourself and how the community might know you, Gail?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I'm a farmer's daughter right here from Saginaw County, and it has been my pleasure to be part of agriculture for my entire life. And so many people probably know me from that. But as far as where I'm at now in Bay County and so forth, between the Disability Services Resource Center, I actually ran a bed and breakfast up the William Clements Inn on Center Road many moons ago, back in 1988, 89. And also worked for Michigan Sugar Company. So I've got some connections here in the local area, definitely.
I think that bed and breakfast didn't know that one. We've talked and you didn't tell me that one. That's exciting. That's really fun.
It is fun to be an innkeeper of all things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay. Yeah. So let's take things back. You started out by saying you're a farmer's daughter. That's a title. Yes. You took that on as like, this is one thing on my resume right here, farmer's daughter. Talk to us about that experience.
Well, and I know they've always said, you don't have to go back that far on resumes. But quite honestly, that's where I was rooted. That's where I'm grounded to this day. But yes, I grew up behind a hoe handle. I'm the youngest of 5 siblings. My 3 older brothers all worked with my dad on the farm in the tractors, all the cushy jobs. My sister, myself, we got to be behind the hoe handles. So we're official whores. There we go.
Oh, I love that. So you were just instilled from day one. We're working hard.
We're working hard. And so my 2 primary words are responsibility and respect. We respected the land, we respected our animals, we respected any people we ever came in contact with. That was first and foremost priority, and being responsible for everything that we did.
Okay. And I mean, you said you're the youngest of 5 siblings, correct? So how did that play a role when usually, as far as going out and working on the farm? Because usually you're like, oh, it's the baby though, not the baby. Was that the case for you, or you were?
Nah, my sister and I often joke about this because she was always stuck in the house, so to speak, helping mom, doing those things. I'd always do my best to escape out of the house, to be the outside. I'd be happy going out and baling hay or straw, or maybe hoeing a field. Not so much, but hey, we did it. Got a really good suntan. That was the key.
Was that the goal though?
That was a goal.
That was to just get out of the house and get a nice tan.
That's right.
So why was it that you didn't feel like that you felt like you didn't want to be in the house?
And I just always felt cooped up. And this way you could get out, you can enjoy nature. And for me, it's watching that sunrise, watching that sunset, and the peace that the outdoors brings. I've always been an outdoor person. So when I have the opportunity to get out and about, I do.
Is that still important for you?
Absolutely.
What do you do to do that, to get out and about?
Oh, once in a while, just a matter of going, sitting outside and enjoying nature. Again, watching the sunsets, the sunrises. Just a beautiful time of the morning, especially this time of year. You get the little snowflake crystals that are falling and the sun's glistening in the morning. It's just beautiful.
I love how you bring out the positivity in snow. That's all.
Well, that's why we live in Michigan. It's gonna happen. If I don't want snow, I move somewhere else. But I like the snow. It's a good thing.
Yeah,
we have 4 seasons, sometimes all in one day.
I've had it happen. It could be a bonus.
It is.
So you're growing up on the farm. What were your ambitions at those young ages on a farm? Were you like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do?
It was, I guess, the opportunity to share healthy, nutritious food with people, with animals. Of course, eventually later on in my life, I started working for the Michigan Soybean Committee and Association. And so it was really bringing healthy nutrition to not only humans, because not a lot of humans eat soy, tofu, miso, etc. You can, obviously, but our number one customer was the livestock. And going back to my days on the farm, my number one fun thing to do, I was in 4-H and I showed steers. And I loved the beef animal. So if I ever come back in another world, in another life, I want to raise beef cattle.
Okay, you said a lot of keywords there, but first let's define what is 4-H for listeners who are like, okay, I know nothing about a farm. What are we talking about now?
Yeah, and it's certainly, you don't have to be a farmer or farm girl to be in 4-H, but it's a program offered through Extension, Michigan State University Extension, to enable people to do things with their head, heart, hands, and health. There's the 4-H's. And, for your club, your community, your country, and your world. And so it's really going from, yourself all the way to the world and anything in between, and offering that helping hand.
How was that transition from being a farm girl to working, you said, in far as giving nutrition to livestock and, the soybean position from that? Mm-hmm. What did that transition? How much time was there between them?
Well, after the whole farmer's daughter thing, I did get married in there. I did get a bachelor's degree. I went to Delta College and got my bachelor's at Saginaw Valley, actually, in communication with minors in English and management. So I kept my degree very open. Back in the 80s, 90s, it was understood that for the most part, we don't need you to have specific classes. We want to be able to teach you when you get on the job.
Okay.
And so that's where I led in. So I didn't have agronomic classes, so to speak, that weren't offered locally. I didn't go to Michigan State, but I had the rooting and the grounding in agriculture on the farm at home.
Where did the English component fall into this?
Probably by accident somewhere.
I love the honesty of that. A counselor told me I did it.
You had enough classes. You just sign up. It's another minor.
So you went to Saginaw Valley.
That's where I graduated.
What happened next?
From there, other than getting married in the interim, I did have a few different positions. Like I had mentioned, working for Michigan Sugar, which obviously is still around.
Yep.
And then I started at Michigan Soybean, and I was there for almost 29 years and resigned back in 2019. But I spent my time, the last 16 years there, I was the executive director. So we had a bunch of staff. I was able to work with them and give and empower them with, okay, this is your job description. This is your commitment, your responsibility. I respect you for your knowledge, and please go ahead and do your job, and likewise, I did the same.
You were the executive director?
Mhm.
You said, yeah, not a problem. I did that. Okay. And so farmer's daughter, executive director.
Well, there was a little bit in between. I
Yeah.
started out, I was the second employee for the most part at the soybean office. And I did some of the secretarial, I did all the accounting, I did membership. So I grew through those first 13 years there before I became the executive director.
So was there ever a point where you were just intimidated by that process of like, whew, all right, I grew up on a farm. I was, tossing hay, and now we're over here graduating college. Like, was there ever a point where you're just like, how did this happen?
No, I think it just, you take steps along the way. And not only the steps of through the job itself, but in the interim, we were also then starting to raise a family. So you're learning as you go along. I also became a member of the American Businesswomen's Association. And so, because remember I said how I didn't take specific classes, like I'm not an accountant, but I might have needed some accounting background, enough to be dangerous, as I always say.
I like that.
So I joined American Businesswomen's Association. I went to a lot of conferences and took a lot of seminars, leadership classes, training, these kind of things, to pick up on what I needed to know. For example, in high school, senior year, again, in the 80s, all we had was one computer class my senior year, basic programming, like we're all going to be programmers, right? Not. So I had to do a lot of things through the year to teach myself how to create brochures or newsletters or do a press release or whatever it was needed at the time. So there's a lot of skills that I learned on the job, as well as through a lot of these different leadership courses that came about.
That want or need to learn skills, where did that motivation come from?
If you want to keep going in your position, you're going to need to do it.
So it's evolving.
It's that responsibility.
Okay.
And knowing that if I wanted to keep advancing or whatever that next step was for me, that's what I needed to do. And so I've always encouraged, again, I mentioned our kids. We had 4 kids, they're all adults, grown, and we encourage them as well. You're going to be responsible for taking on that next step after high school, for example. We want you to go to college or whatever vocational school, and you're going to figure out how you're going to pay for it. We've paid, as I've jokingly said, everything you've wanted and needed from birth through high school graduation. And from there, you need to take that responsibility on. And gradually we passed along their, life insurance bills or auto insurance bills or whatever, so they gradually were able to do some of that, but their college education was on them. So they knew that they either had to get academic scholarships, sports scholarships, apply for grants, loans, whatever it took to get them to pay for their own college.
Did you instill in your children, college is after high school? Like, that's what you do?
At that point in the, early 2000s, that was kind of what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. And now the encouraging is, if you've got a trade, go for it. Because boy, if you're a welder or whatever, you can get out there, you can make a lot of money, and you don't have that student loan debt behind you.
Hey, you know what? It's about advancement, right?
Yes.
And you said that there's responsibility in advancement.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the things that you taught your children to really instill that blend of those two things in them?
Instilling responsibility and
collating, like you have to be responsible to advance to the next step.
Yeah. Well, maybe a better is, how.
Yeah.
We encouraged them to, let's say, take piano lessons. That was on me because music is important to me. And so you're going to do this. You'll do it for at least a year. And then if you want to continue on, it's up to you. And from there, they decided, I want to play the clarinet. I want to play the trombone. I want to play the saxophone, whatever. Then it's on them. You've committed to it for a year. You're responsible. You can't stop now.
Yeah.
You keep going. If after that year or 2 or 3 is up and you decide to try something different, go right ahead.
You said music's important to you. Why is that?
I don't know. There's, I guess, kind of like nature. It's just soothing and comforting. When I was in high school, I was in a performing arts group called Venner, which is a Norwegian word, which means friends. But I went to Frankenmuth High School, as did my husband and all 4 of our kids. And unfortunately, that program is no longer there. But the director has since passed away. But it was an opportunity to spread our wings. I was with the first group that traveled overseas, actually, with the group to Germany, Austria, Switzerland. And in part because of that, you're connecting with people. Music, there's no boundary for music, no language barriers. They might not understand what you're saying, but they can still see, feel, and hear that music.
I was just talking to a friend about this because we were talking about bilingual music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a blend of English and Spanish music. And he's like, I don't know what they're saying, but man, I feel it. And it feels good. It's motivating. It feels good. Okay. So we're talking to Gail Frahm, and Gail is telling us a little bit about herself and how and what she's doing to connect herself to the community. But what are you doing currently?
Currently, I am the executive director for Disability Services Resource Center, which is a nonprofit organization, a 501c3, and we serve people with disabilities, whether it's permanent or temporary. You know, if you have a foot surgery, you're a Bay County resident, you need a knee scooter, we can provide that for you. If you live in Bay County and you need to be able to get up and down out of your home with a wheelchair or walker, you need a ramp, we can build that for you. So there's a lot of these types of programs that we offer, as well as for kids and young adults with disabilities, like our softball and bowling. They're adaptive sports, specifically to get them out of the house. And boy, did COVID put a pin in a lot of those things. Mm-hmm. But we were able to overcome, and we decided to be a little bit creative, and we did some online Zooms with the kids, I'm going to say, with disabilities. We had them do some art projects. They sent in the art projects, and we were able to create a calendar and sell it as a fundraiser then for disability services. So sometimes you just have to pivot. As you said, it's important. Not only did I do that in basketball, which I played at Delta College, by the way, for a couple of years. We talked about that.
You did talk about that. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Fun.
Gail, you're so dynamic.
Uh-oh.
You're so dynamic. I can't wrap my mind around all the different points that we have here. Okay. I don't even know whether to take it to basketball or, I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Let's, if you want, as far as Disability Services Resource Center and how I'm involved in the community there, I mentioned a couple of the programs that we do, and certainly any resident of Bay County, they can just call us up if they need some medical equipment, anything from canes and crutches to hospital beds and amigos and so forth. Whatever we have in stock primarily is secondhand, but we loan it out at no cost with just a doctor's prescription. Pretty easy peasy.
How did you shift into this position?
After I resigned from soybean, I took a little bit the summer off and decided, all right, time to get back into the swing of things. And honestly, what I wanted to do was refurbish our family farm home, which I didn't mention before. It's where I grew up. So we bought that back from my mom and dad a number of years ago. And I thought, oh, maybe it's time now to go ahead and make my place into a bed and breakfast in the country, because we really did enjoy being innkeepers when we were at the William Clements Inn in Bay City. But then it's like, we didn't move forward with that. So I'm going to go out and see what might be out on the job market. And disability services came about. And it was just a really neat opportunity. And I remember being in the interview with the folks, and I had asked, okay, if we do all of these great things for the people in Bay County, where is this office or building or business in Saginaw or Tuscola or Midland or Genesee that we can, then network with each other and help each other out, just building the bigger picture. And I said, there's no one else around that does all the 5 programs that we do here.
Yeah.
And I have found that out. It's just us. And there's folks from Saginaw County and so forth that really want those services. It's like, well, move to Bay County. We'll be all set. We can help you out.
I can help you. Just come over here.
Just come on over.
It is quite a unique and very big-hearted type of business that you're in right now. You really, you're pouring everything, and I'm sure you're hearing stories that, those are not stories that you'll hear at the soybean,
Absolutely.
So what kind of things are you encountering on the job now that just kind of hits you?
Well, pulls at the heartstring because, you've got people that call up and say, well, my mom died and I've got all of this medical equipment. And what do I do with this? I can relate. My mom died in 2021. We had the medical equipment, so we can donate it. And at least, you're helping someone else in need. And that is just very heartwarming to me. We've had people that come in and they're in tears because they had no one else to turn to. They had no idea how they were going to get a wheelchair or a walker or a cane or a hospital bed, or it might even before their children who are in need. So we can help out a variety of different people along the way. Most of our items are for adults, but once in a while we can at least make a connection to someone who can help.
And tell us about your small and mighty team that you have there.
I am the only full-time person at Disability Services. We have currently 3 part-timers who pretty much make up another full-time person, a little better than one full-time person. In short, we help, probably about 1,200 people to 1,500 people a year, depending on the year, with thousands of pieces of durable medical equipment, personal care items, building ramps. I did the numbers for this last year, actually, and we had given out over $300,000 of value of items at no cost to people in the community. And again, most of this was donated to us.
How does that make you feel?
Oh, just elated that, you can help someone. That's very heartwarming.
I see that helpful component being a trend here. Just trying to help everybody, Gail.
Helping other people in need. Absolutely.
Was there ever a time where you thought, this is too much? This is a lot of work?
Specifically the disability services piece or everything that I'm doing? No.
Let's talk about disability services.
No. We were able to bring on another person who's there the 4 days that we're open. So that has really helped take some of the weight off of me needing to do a lot of the running of the parking lot. Because for the most part, I am working with the board of directors. I have 8 directors currently on the board. So I do all of that, as well as all the financials. I do all the grant writing and primarily spearhead most of our fundraisers. We'll talk about those too, I'm sure.
Yes, we will. You are an absolute Wonder Woman of Bay City, Bay County. This is fantastic. So let's touch a little bit more on the grant writing, scholarships, and all those things when we come back to That's What We Said. That's What We Said with Gail Frahm. Just hold on tight because we'll be back and we'll dive deep into what's next and who's the woman behind all of these amazing things happening.
That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara is back. Now let's spill the tea.
And we're back to That's What She Said with Christiana Malacara. That is me. And I am here with Gail Frahm. And Gail was just sharing a lot. Gail was sharing so much about her her life experiences and that the many trails that have been oh man, that lead to where you are now, right? And I
Absolutely.
think we were kind of talking about this on the phone at another date. I had said, well, when you encounter someone in your life, that person could, steer you a little bit to the left, a little to the right, and that original path that you were on, when you look back, you're like, whoa, where'd that path go? But you know what? I'm happy where I'm at. And you seem so confident in where you are right now. Like the energy that you give off is confidence. You just this whole presence of like being ready to push forward.
Mhm.
Okay. And I personally think that that's a good piece of advice to kind of just say, hey, maybe that path that I started on was good, but you know what? The one I'm on is good too. And I can thank this person and this experience that got me here.
Mhm.
So when we left off, you were talking about disability services in the Bay County, and there was scholarships and grants and things that you had also kind of tagged in there at the end. So let's start there. Tell us about that.
We do have a few things going on at Disability Services, and then I'll kind of transition that to in my personal life and with the kids and so forth.
Yes.
At Disability Services, we do offer a really cool program for kids, adults, anyone that has disabilities and wants to attend, let's say, summer camps anywhere in Michigan. We have some dollars available that I've written for some grant monies that we can then let that out to those kiddos or adults who want to take in a summer camp or whatever it is. Additionally, we've got a summer special needs enrichment program for kids and young adults ages 5 to 36 that these special needs folks can come in for 6 weeks in the summer, and it gives the parents and families some respite time. And there too, we're looking at doing some scholarship or some sponsorship, I should say, opportunities for those people as well. I personally, at Disability Services, one thing I've been really excited about doing, and it was kind of new to me coming onto this position, which, I mean, they brought me in to somehow bring money into the business so that we could keep serving the people of Bay County. And one of the many things, pieces of that is grant writing. So again, that was new to me, but in the course of the 5 years that I've been there, we've been able to collectively bring in over $500,000 to go towards all of our programs and to keep them up and running. And I kind of say that excitingly because this is also during COVID. Now, certainly there are some of these dollars that might have been some of the ARPA funds or the PPP loans or whatever they call them.
Yeah, understood.
All those
Yeah.
acronyms. But the importance of no one's going to give you a handout, but you actually have to go out and seek some of those funds. Disabilities typically aren't pretty. You're not going to just have someone dump money in your lap.
So I'm assuming that
helps.
you've heard the word no.
A little bit.
How do you react to that?
Yeah, it's just one more step to, okay, well, you just got to network with them, connect with them, have that deeper conversation, get them to relate to, who do you have in your family that might have a disability of some sort? Again, it could be permanent, it could be temporary. And connect the importance of, hey, how can we help them out?
Okay. We're talking about scholarships and grants.
Yes.
And we're going to dive a little deeper into you as, a woman, a mother, a wife. And let's talk about that. Okay. So we established that you have children and you're married. And you were telling me a fun story about how you met your husband. And I think that's...
Did I mention he's a farmer?
Yeah.
It happens. We see a trend. We actually met for the most part between my mom and dad and his parents. They were in Farm Bureau Club together. Tom and I were both in 4-H. He's just got me beat by a number of years. But yeah, things sparked, it worked, and together we raised 4 kids. But going back, if I may, to college days, we were talking basketball before.
Yes.
When I went out to Delta in the mid 80s, they used to have dorms back at Delta years ago.
Wow.
And I had visited with a basketball coach, and I said, I've got a lot of scholarships that I've applied for through the American Business Women's Association or different groups. And if you could help me out a little bit more, I'd like to live in the dorms. That way I don't have all the wear and tear on a car. Gas prices were cheap, but at least this way I was safely out on campus and I could study. I could work on campus.
Yeah.
And he kind of looked at me and he actually said, well, the scholarship dollars are for the guys. And he caught himself.
Oh.
And he's like, why not? So, I mean, it was $500 each semester or each year, whatever it was. And it was enough to get me to be able to stay out there. Academically, I had the presidential scholarship going to Delta, so I didn't have a lot of costs, but there was going to be cost to living in the dorms. So again, it's just being responsible, taking that step, moving forward, saying, hey, can you help me out?
Just curious, do you know if there's scholarships out there for the basketball girls out in Delta?
I have not checked lately, but if you're a basketball girl out there or whatever sport you're playing, be sure to ask. Yeah. I'm assuming there are at this point in time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
go ahead. So I had I mentioned the American Business Women's Association.
Yes, that's where I was going.
That was a very important pivotal piece in my life because, like I said, when I went to college, it was very generic classes, so to speak, enough to get the communication degree, management English minors. But now I needed some more specific training in some areas. So I did this through the American Business Women's Association, a lot of programs there. But when I was going to college, I had applied for some grants or scholarships at the time through that group, which I obtained some local national scholarships. So I then encouraged the kids. Of course, I've got 3 daughters and a son, and our girls had all applied for scholarships, and some received some both at the local level from the American Business Women's Association, as well as at the national level. And our youngest daughter actually received a memorial scholarship from someone who passed away. It was through the American Business Women and the Stephen Buffton Memorial Educational Fund. Now there's a mouthful for you.
Yeah, that is.
But they were from Texas and passed away. And unfortunately, our youngest daughter, Carrie, was also killed just in October of 23. And so as people were giving memorials to us, we said, okay, let's see how we can pay that forward. So one of the scholarships we've created, or the scholarship, is through this Stephen Buffton Memorial Educational Fund. Our daughter, Carrie, was very involved, graduated from Ferris with a hospitality management degree. So we've specifically targeted this scholarship for hospitality management. It's open right now at sbmef.org. And it's the Carrie Frahm Pay It Forward Memorial Scholarship. Right now it's over $4,000 to anyone junior level or higher in college. So Carrie herself received that scholarship or a scholarship, about $2,000. Now that's paying it forward. It's already doubled that amount. So we're excited to be able to offer that on her behalf.
How important was it for you and your family to pay it forward?
Extremely. When after Carrie had passed, we had within a couple of days been reached out to from Frankenmuth High School and girls basketball. Carrie, as well as our other 2 daughters, and our son didn't play on the girls basketball team, but he was on the guys. But we all played basketball at Frankenmuth High School. But they reached out to us and said, we want to do something. We said, okay. Define we, and then we'll figure out what we can do, right?
Yeah.
But basically what it was is they reached out to Freeland High School was going to be competing against Frankenmuth High School first or second week of December that year. And they offered, hey, if you want to do silent auction, if you want to, we'll give you the 50-50 proceeds, whatever, because they had heard we wanted to start a donor advised fund through the Frankenmuth Community Foundation in Carrie's honor. So a lot of the other memorial dollars that weren't directed specifically to our church, which was another place people could make donations to, they were able to go ahead and come to this it was bigger than basketball is what they deemed it as. And we were able to raise a lot of money, which are now in that donor advised fund. So again, we can continue to pay it forward because donor advised funds are based on my husband, myself as the donor advisors.
Yep.
where to direct those funds. So it's the proceeds, the profits from them each year can go to nonprofits across the nation. So Carrie can continue to have this bless other places. So we've not only already started to pay it forward through this donor advised fund at our church and our grade school, but through Frankenmuth High School, because we had we wanted to first and foremost pay it back to them because
first.
they were the ones that really started this bigger than basketball event. But Carrie happened to work out in Colorado at the Grand Lake Lodge.
Okay.
And I know she frequented the Grand Lake Repertory Theater. So, for example, that's a little nonprofit. They're looking for some funding. And so we're able to help out different organizations. Anything that we feel would have resonated with Carrie.
When Carrie had passed, I had just explained that you were just this energy of trailblazing. Was there a pause when Carrie had passed? What did that experience feel like as a mother and as, a busy woman, honestly?
Yeah. It definitely obviously sets you back when you have 4 police officers showing up on your doorstep at 11 o'clock at night. Carrie was traveling between her 2 locations for the company she worked for. So she was driving from Colorado to California when she had a tragic accident in California. And so California is a long way from Michigan.
Yeah.
And so, yes, the world stopped. I grabbed a notebook because I knew at that point, if I didn't write it down, it was not going to be remembered up here. And I needed to start somewhere. I should mention at this time, our other 3 children were nowhere near Michigan. One is actually doing some mission work over in Estonia, and she was not available, obviously, right away at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
It was 6 o'clock, whatever in the morning, wherever she was at. We also have our daughter who's a flight attendant, and at that time was in Atlanta, Georgia. And ironically, Carrie had also just been accepted for a position as a flight attendant with Delta 2 days before she was killed. So she was all excited about doing this job with her sister at the time. And then our son was in Idaho. His wife is a captain in the U.S. Air Force. She, at the time, was stationed over in Qatar. So we had no one around. And so, yes, it was just sit down and the world stopped and had to figure out, where do we go from here? Because all you were literally handed is a business card from the police officers that says, here's the morgue phone number.
Yeah.
And this is Carrie's case number.
Wow. She sounds like a wonderful girl and also very dynamic. Hospitality, flight attendant, traveling the country.
And the world. She studied abroad in Utrecht for a semester. And my second daughter, who's a flight attendant now, she and I actually got to fly over there. And we made a Thanksgiving dinner at Carrie's flat when she lived in Utrecht for all of her flatmates, about 16 of us, I think, in total. But they're from around the world. Only one other boy was from the U.S., from Detroit. And he came up to me afterward and he said, Mom Frahm, thank you for doing that, Thanksgiving dinner, because he wasn't home for Thanksgiving. So we were able to do that for him.
Mom Frahm.
I've got many T-shirts that say Mom Frahm on them.
It rhymes.
Exactly.
So moving back into motherhood after you lose your child, was there a difference? Did you ever look through it through a different scope, or you're just what was that experience? Let's unpack that.
I think difference in the sense of, once you have everyone literally flooding in within minutes to your home, and then as the kids start to go back to their homes and everyone's trying to find that new normal. For me, there's a lot of lonely or quiet nights. And so at 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning, which people who know me know that that's when I did my best work anyways with
2 in the morning?
Oh, yeah. That's when I would create my agendas for my business women's groups or whatever, that because the phone wasn't ringing and the husband was off snoring. Sorry, Tom. I snore too, so there we go. I'll admit it. But that was my opportunity to just sit, and that's when your mind is spinning, and I was able to do some, people call it journaling. I don't call it journaling because I wrote these stories or what was going on, and I have since posted them on my Facebook page, but it's a morning, Mother's Morning was my very first one. And it just really kind of put the feelings out there. And hopefully with that, I also tie in, what grounds us is not only that farming background, but more importantly is our religion. Without the faith, without the friendship, and without our church community, I don't know where I'd be right now, because that's what's gotten us through, is everyone's prayers and the church's help.
Did your religious journey change afterwards?
I don't think so, really, for me, because I was always engaged at the church level. I am in the choir, mentioned before. I wanted to get back to that. Got to do it. Actually, when our oldest daughter was just born, I was in the choir. She was in her car seat. I tucked her car seat under the pew, and we sang in choir, so it was great. But then she didn't fit under the pew anymore, so we had to move on. Had more kids, and then after the kids were off high school and so forth, I was able to get back to the choir. But
have you ever connected with other mothers in the community or across the nation that have experienced a loss similar to yours with an adult child?
It's funny you mentioned that, because I just said something even at our church. There's a lot of moms who maybe had miscarriages or have had children who have died from cancer or whatever it is, that, maybe they've not come out and said much, or they're holding it in. And holding it in is probably the worst you can do. You have to have some open conversations. It's so much easier to talk about it. And we encourage people to talk to us about Carrie, because it helps us and it helps them. If Carrie knew probably more people in this world than many people do, and has connected, just because when you're in the hospitality industry, that's what you do, right?
Yeah. I mean, hospitality, honestly, that's fun. That's fun. That's a fun thing. So I have to ask, was there ever any stories that you're like, oh, I didn't know that about Carrie, that you're like, this is really cool, like you're still getting to know her? Did that ever happen?
When we went out, our family had heard they wanted to do a dedication out at the Grand Lake Lodge. And that happened in September of this last year. So part of it was a dedication of a swing, that the swing isn't new, but they dedicated it. Now it's Carrie's swing. And so we were able to finally meet with a lot of her coworkers. And the one gal who had really kind of, I think, spearheaded this out there on the ground was introducing herself, and had mentioned a little bit about Carrie. And she said, sometimes when you're in the industry, the hospitality industry, whatever, people first, right? And you can tell you're in a restaurant situation or whatever, and the tensions are getting a little high. And she said, Carrie could just tell when we were having a bad day or whatever, and Carrie would grab us by the arm and take us out on the big Grand Lake Lodge porch and just say, look at that. Look at the sunrise, look at the mountains, look at the water. It's like nothing is bad. And I think it's kind of neat, because I also go back to nature. and that's where you get grounded.
Yeah, you definitely instilled that in her.
So that was kind of fun.
Along with the helping portion.
And the helping portion, she got that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
So when we're talking about grieving mothers, is there a piece of advice that you would pass along specifically for a grieving mother?
Again, don't hold it in. Reach out to others who are also experiencing this. There are many Facebook groups for grieving mothers, and it is ironic the amount of similarities. And if you can just touch one of them, help one of them get through whatever it is that they're having a bad day. Because, it's, you can have this positive face, and then all of a sudden something triggers and you're done for a little bit, But again, as you said before, don't let someone else's
energy
affect
yours. Yeah.
Unless it's a positive energy.
That's true.
There you go.
That's true. Then you got to meet it and match it and keep going. Okay. So let's talk about Mom Frahm shirts. You said you have lots of them.
I do.
Who gives you these shirts?
Well, many of them I made or had made or whatever. Or some of them were coached from, because I also coached the kids, the girls' basketball teams in grade school, as well as their track team.
I don't think
I have
you
some
sleep.
that say coach from.
I'm pretty sure you don't sleep.
Not much.
Yeah. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't spill the tea often. It's mostly coffee.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. She did it.
Take her off the air.
Okay. Well, okay. So I'm trying to, gosh, this whole episode, I'm just trying to gather this thread of what's the common factor that we're talking about here. Because, for our guests who are just tuning in here in the last 3 minutes, we have Gail Frahm, AKA Mama Frahm. And we have talked about being a basketball player, going to college, but I kind of want to touch again on this women's business perspective. You've been in corporate America. You've been in the nonprofit world as a woman. That is challenging to do as it is, period. But you're also advocating for yourself and others. Where is that energy coming from? Because I know that takes guts, ambition, and a lot of no's sometimes. I'm sure you have to say them, and I'm sure you hear them. Where does all that come from?
I think just knowing, going back to the helping concept and helping others, and in the same time, you're helping yourself. If you're one that wants to have a difference in someone else's life, that always led back to me helping others. That was my connection. No, you talk a lot about empowering, and what does that mean? It's encouraging others. It's being an inspiration to others, being that not necessarily the leader, but you're going alongside and you're helping them and empowering them to be better.
That's interesting. You said that. Being empowering does not mean that you necessarily have to be the leader.
Correct.
Was there ever a time that you weren't a leader but felt like you were empowering someone?
I think that's a daily basis where, you've got to balance, as you said, balance people's energy or meet people's energy and see what their needs are or see what the expectations are. Depends what your position that you're in.
As a woman, what piece of advice, even if this entails a story, we have a minute left. What is a piece of advice that you would pass along to a woman with life experiences that may have been parallel to yours?
A funny one is, if you're going to take on a job, maybe go into something that it's not a female job. Take on something that typically has been held by men, like when I worked for Soybean. I was the first female soy exec in the state of Michigan, right? When we went to those soybean meetings, there was never a line at the women's bathroom.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you, Gail Frahm. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And that was Gail Frahm. And that's what she said.